Good morning, everyone. I am delighted to welcome you all today. I'm Dr. S.K. Singh, and I will be guiding you through an important aspect of stability studies. The title of today's presentation is Bracketing and Matrixing in Stability Studies. We'll be exploring these key concepts and how they help optimize stability testing. Over the next few slides, we'll cover the principles, applications, and best practices related to bracketing and matrixing. So, let's get started and dive into this interesting topic. Let's take a closer look at some key guidelines that shape our approach to stability testing. First, we have the ICHQ-1A R2 guideline, which focuses on the stability testing of new drug substances and products. This sets the foundation for understanding how to properly evaluate product stability over time. Then, there's ICHQ-1D, which introduces bracketing and matrixing designs. These are strategies to optimize stability testing by reducing the number of samples we need, without compromising the integrity of the data. We also need to consider the expectations from WHO TRS 1010, as well as US FDA and EMA guidelines. These international standards help ensure our stability programs are aligned with global regulatory requirements. An important concept here is reducing the number of stability samples. This not only saves time and resources, but also must be balanced with maintaining scientific and regulatory justification. We need to ensure that our testing adequately reflects the product's performance over its entire shelf life. This approach applies to both active pharmaceutical ingredients and drug products, emphasizing a risk-based stability design. The goal is always to ensure product quality is maintained throughout its shelf life, supported by a scientifically justified testing plan. Ultimately, these guidelines help us develop a robust stability program that is efficient, compliant, and focused on delivering safe, high-quality medicines to patients. Let's take a closer look at matrixing and bracketing, two important study designs. With matrixing, instead of testing every sample at each time point, we test a subset of samples. This means that not all samples are tested at every interval, but over the entire study period, each sample is tested at some points. This approach helps us optimize resources while still gathering enough data to evaluate stability effectively. On the other hand, bracketing focuses on testing only the extreme variants, such as the lowest and highest strengths or the smallest and largest container sizes. The key assumption here is that the stability of intermediate levels can be inferred from these extremes. For example, if the extreme strengths remain stable over time, we can reasonably expect the intermediate strengths to behave similarly. Both of these methods are useful tools in our overall stability testing strategy. They help us balance thoroughness with efficiency, ensuring we get the data we need without unnecessary testing. When considering bracketing, it's important to focus on formulations that are consistent in certain aspects. First, identical formulation composition means that the active ingredients and excipients are the same across the samples. Second, using the same manufacturing process ensures uniformity in how the product is made. Third, employing the same container closure system helps maintain consistent interaction with the environment. And lastly, a linear or predictable degradation pattern allows us to anticipate how the product will break down over time. These conditions are crucial because they make the bracketing approach valid and reliable. However, it's important to remember when bracketing is not acceptable. If we're dealing with different formulations, the behavior of the products can vary significantly, making bracketing unsuitable. Similarly, nonlinear degradation, where the breakdown doesn't follow a predictable pattern, can compromise the integrity of the testing. Known stability issues are another red flag, as they can lead to misleading conclusions. So, understanding these key points helps us determine when bracketing can be applied effectively and when alternative strategies are necessary. Let's take a closer look at the tablet strength bracketing formulation. We have 3 strengths: 5 mg, 10 mg, and 20 mg. The design here focuses on the stability of the 5 mg and 20 mg tablets, which are the endpoints, meaning we test only these 2. The key point is that the formulation is proportional across these strengths, using the same excipients and manufacturing process. This consistency helps ensure that the stability data can be extrapolated across the different doses. Moving on to API strength bracketing, our API strengths are 100 mg, 200 mg, and 400 mg. In this case, we only test the 100 mg and 400 mg strengths, assuming that the 200 mg stability is represented by these endpoints. This approach reduces testing burden while still providing reliable stability data. The testing conditions include long-term stability at 25 degrees Celsius with 60% relative humidity, and accelerated stability at 40 degrees Celsius with 75% relative humidity. These conditions help us predict how the product will behave over time. From a regulatory perspective, it's important that the synthesis and packaging are the same across strengths and that the impurity profile remains consistent. This supports the justification for bracketing, making the process more efficient while maintaining quality. Finally, this example illustrates how bracketing strategies are applied in practice, allowing us to streamline testing without compromising on safety or efficacy. Let's talk about bracketing sample reduction. This is a technique used to simplify data by grouping similar data points into broader ranges or brackets. The main idea here is to reduce the complexity of the dataset, making it easier to analyze and interpret. By doing this, we can focus on the overall patterns rather than getting lost in the details of every individual data point. This approach is especially useful when dealing with large datasets where fine-grained detail isn't always necessary for making informed decisions. Ultimately, bracketing sample reduction helps us streamline our analysis, making our insights clearer and more actionable, which ties back to our overall goal of efficient and effective data processing. Let's take a closer look at this matrixing example to understand how it works in formulation testing. We have 3 strengths and 6 different time points to consider. Instead of testing every strength at every single time point, which can be quite resource-intensive, we use a matrixing approach. For instance, Strength A is tested at 0, 6, and 12 months. Strength B, on the other hand, is tested at 0, 3, and 9 months. And Strength C is tested at 0, 6, and 12 months as well. The key here is that each strength is tested over its shelf life, but not necessarily at every time point for every sample. This approach allows us to efficiently gather the necessary stability data without redundant testing. It's a smart way to optimize resources while still ensuring we get comprehensive information about how each strength performs over time. This concept of matrixing design is really about strategic sampling, focusing on key points to build a complete picture efficiently. Now, let's take a closer look at the calculation process involved in matrixing sample reduction. This step is crucial because it helps us simplify complex data sets while maintaining their essential characteristics. When we talk about matrixing, we're essentially organizing our data into a matrix format, which makes it easier to perform calculations and analyze relationships. Sample reduction, on the other hand, involves reducing the number of samples we analyze without losing significant information. This is important because it saves time and resources, especially when dealing with large data sets. The challenge is to ensure that the reduced sample still accurately represents the original data. By matrixing, we can identify which samples are most representative and which ones can be combined or eliminated. This process involves some calculations, like averaging or applying weighting factors, to ensure that the reduced data set reflects the overall trend. This step connects directly to our broader goal of efficient and accurate data analysis. It allows us to streamline our process without sacrificing reliability, which is key for making informed decisions based on the data. So, understanding how to calculate and implement matrixing for sample reduction is fundamental to optimizing our analytical workflows. Let's take a closer look at the regulatory benefits of bracketing in stability studies. First, It's important to note that this approach is recognized and permitted under the ICH-Q1D guidelines. It's also accepted by major regulatory agencies like the US FDA, EMA, and WHO, provided that the approach is scientifically justified. This means that using bracketing supports a risk-based stability strategy, which aligns well with ICH-Q9, emphasizing quality risk management. Now, moving to the scientific and operational benefits, bracketing allows us to evaluate the worst-case conditions by testing the highest and lowest strengths or the largest and smallest packs. This helps us reduce the number of stability samples needed without compromising the robustness of the study. It also speeds up the generation of stability data across multiple strengths or pack sizes, which can be a real-time saver. From an operational perspective, bracketing makes efficient use of our stability chambers and analytical resources, freeing them up for other critical tasks. Plus, it simplifies data trending and interpretation, making it easier to see the overall stability profile. When is bracketing scientifically justified? Well, it's appropriate when formulations are proportional across different strengths, and when the manufacturing process remains the same for all variants. The container closure system should also be consistent in terms of material and permeability. Additionally, we expect similar degradation kinetics across the variants, and the extremes tested should represent the maximum risk scenarios we might encounter. Finally, the main benefit of applying bracketing in stability studies is that it allows us to streamline our testing process, saving time and resources while still ensuring the integrity and safety of our products. Let's take a closer look at the regulatory benefits of matrixing. As outlined in ICH-Q1D, this approach is explicitly described and permitted, which provides a clear regulatory pathway. It also encourages designing more efficient stability programs, helping us meet regulatory expectations while optimizing resources. Additionally, matrixing aligns well with the lifecycle management concepts outlined in ICH-Q10, supporting continuous improvement and risk-based decision-making throughout a product's life cycle. Moving on to the scientific and operational benefits, matrixing can significantly reduce testing frequency at individual time points. This means fewer tests without sacrificing the ability to evaluate long-term stability trends, which is crucial for understanding product performance over time. It also enables us to test more batches or product strengths within the same resource constraints, increasing our overall testing capacity. Importantly, it minimizes the analytical workload, so we can focus on high-value testing without compromising data quality. This approach is especially useful for products with well-established stability profiles, where variability is low and trends are predictable. Now, when is matrixing scientifically justified? It's appropriate when the stability behavior of the samples is comparable across batches. If the product exhibits low variability and predictable degradation patterns, we can confidently apply matrixing. We also need sufficient data points to establish clear trends over time. Plus, a thorough risk assessment should support the decision to omit certain time point tests, ensuring we maintain data integrity and confidence in our stability conclusions. In summary, the benefits of matrixing in stability studies include regulatory acceptance, efficiency, and maintaining robust data. When applied appropriately, it helps us streamline testing without compromising the quality and reliability of our stability data, ultimately supporting better product lifecycle management. When considering when regulators might reject matrixing or bracketing approaches, there are several key factors to keep in mind. First, they often look at non-proportional formulations. If the formulations differ significantly, it can raise concerns. Similarly, different manufacturing processes or container closure systems can also be reasons for rejection, especially if these differences impact stability. Known stability issues or high variability in degradation are other red flags. If there's limited or insufficient historical stability data, regulators may be hesitant to accept a matrixing approach. Now, from the authorities' perspective, they expect a clear scientific rationale documented within the stability protocol. This means you need to support your approach with thorough risk assessments and justify your selection of the worst-case scenarios. Statistical trend analysis of your stability data also plays a critical role. They want to see that you've analyzed how your product behaves over time. Additionally, it's important to commit to testing all samples at both the initial and final time points to ensure consistency. Finally, if there are any significant changes, whether in formulation, manufacturing process, or packaging, you need to reevaluate your stability data accordingly. Overall, regulatory expectations are grounded in transparency, scientific soundness, and thorough documentation. They want to be confident that your approach ensures product quality and stability throughout its shelf life. For further support, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you with any questions or additional resources you might need. Feel free to contact us through the provided channels. And finally, I want to sincerely thank you for your time and attention today. Your engagement is truly appreciated, and I hope you found the presentation valuable. Remember, we're here to support you every step of the way.